Once again, we are covering another game featured at the Steam Next Fest, by the name of Bless Online. For the record, I should clarify today that I'm simply critiquing the demo released as part of the Next Fest. This is not a full review of the final product. I may swing back and do a proper review after the full game launches, but for now we're just going to have to wait and see. First off, I'm not going to beat around the bush here. This demo is short. When the Steam store page listed this as a tutorial demo, I figured maybe I can expect at least 15 or 20 minutes of decent gameplay that gives me enough to work with, where I can do what I normally do and cut out the boring bits for you guys and instead focus on the more interesting bits. In almost all my videos, I try to edit the gameplay enough where it hopefully proves to never be too boring to watch. Even if the game is garbage, I try to usually present the best or at least better moments on screen, rather than the boring bits. The problem here is that the demo is so insanely short, it gives me literally nothing to work with. I thought the demo for Little Nightmares seemed short, but even that was at bare minimum 15 or 16 minutes long. Bless Online, it seems, can barely handle half of that runtime, clocking in at just under 8 minutes long. And for the record, I'm not including the intro cinematic they play at the start once you customize your character. Maybe that's how they pad out the playthrough length a bit. I'm not a huge MMO type player. I used to be kind of into MMORPGs, at least the ones where they had a more distinct art style. World of Warcraft always looked and felt fairly generic when I tried it free for the first 14 days or whatever the trial version was, so I never really got into that. I did have a good time with RuneScape in its earliest years, back when you could only play on the website launcher itself, rather than on desktop. And I later got into Pirates of the Caribbean Online and LEGO Universe during the later 2000s and early 2010s. So keep in mind when I talk about Bless Online or any other MMO type game, it's mainly from the perspective of a casual player. I'm the kind of player who will grind to unlock and play through all the story missions, or as many as I can anyway. But conversely, I'm not really the one who likes to engage in raids and other lengthy group-based activities. I tend to enjoy my MMOs as a solo experience, something that I can kind of just immerse myself in without needing anyone else with me. And I know there's a certain irony in playing a massively multiplayer online game and looking to be alone, but that's how I am. One of the things I did rather enjoy in this very short demo was the combat. The combat system does feel a bit slow in nature, which to be fair isn't exactly uncommon for an MMORPG, but it does redeem itself somewhat in my eyes with its quite extensive list of available combos. You can play as any one of a handful of character types, being the Berserker, the Crusader, the Mage, the Priest, and the Ranger. Each has their own distinct playstyle. For my demo playthrough, I chose to play through as the Ranger. I'm not going to do a full breakdown of what each class does and how they distinguish themselves from the rest, but I will say that there does seem to be very little overlap between the four of them. I don't know if the developers have plans to continue adding new characters beyond the original four, but I do hope so. I would love to see more characters included post-launch. I could easily see this game supporting maybe 6 or 8 characters at least, not just 4. The bosses, at least the ones I played against in the tutorial, were fairly decent. I enjoyed the variety of moves they exhibited. One of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to boss battles is when a developer regards the boss as little more than a abnormally large version of a normal enemy type, with just a lot more health to spare. If you're going to have a boss or bosses in your game, create unique attack animations and a special, unique branching game tree that allows the boss to react differently based on player behavior. I'm not saying you have to have a procedurally generated AI that just constantly gets smarter over time, but unless your game has Dark Souls-like difficulty, you shouldn't need to have your bosses so incredibly scripted that you can almost immediately exploit their weakness after only a few seconds of study. If your boss only has 2 moves, a single primary attack and a single charge-up secondary attack, that's boring. Luckily here, the bosses that I played against proved at least mildly challenging, to the point where I didn't feel outright bored while playing against them. But they did only deal small amounts of damage overall, which enabled me to play far more recklessly than I should have been able to. Then again, this is a tutorial, so I don't expect the bosses to be able to really kill me or significantly damage me. Hopefully the rest of the bosses outside the tutorial will prove to be far more of a challenge. The graphics are decent but not mind-blowing. Then again, MMOs are not generally known for their mind-blowing visual fidelity. MMOs tend to be among the ugliest and outdated games of their generation, whatever generation they're a part of when they release. Which is why smart MMO developers give them a distinct art style that can hopefully age reasonably well with time. And if MMO players who hear this don't like that, well, you can bite me and kiss my ass, because let's face it, it's true. I know it's true, you know it's true, we all know it's true. You just don't want to admit it, and that's perfectly fine. The game's great, doesn't have to have perfect visuals, it can excel in other areas, trust me. Now that we've headed that off, I am a little bit worried about the future of the game post-launch. The developer seems to be quite spread thin in terms of game releases. In total, by the end of the year, they'll have launched 7 games, at least 2 being online live service type games. Granted, I'm not really factoring in whether they're acting as both developer and publisher for each title, or just serving as one or the other for one or more of them. But point being, they have quite a lot on their plate, so I am rightfully concerned about whether they have what it takes to support an MMORPG with consistent major new updates over the coming months and years. One of the cornerstones behind any truly successful MMORPG is the amount of content the developer provides post-launch. If you can't even manage one single major expansion, paid or otherwise, along with a handful of seasonal in-game events, you should really reconsider whether you want to be in the MMORPG business in the first place. And I haven't really heard nor seen a lot about what kind of social features and mechanics the developer plans to include at launch or post-launch to help foster in-game communities. Are we getting guilds? Are dungeons a thing? I haven't been closely following the game, so if they've said something, it's quite possible I've missed it. I've been more so keeping track of what Amazon's been up to with New World, but these, as well as a few other things, are what I'll be curious to check out for myself when the game launches in August. On a side note, I'm really perplexed why the developer felt it wise to release this game only a few weeks before Amazon launches New World. Why not release Bless Online in September or October when there's no major MMO releasing, at least to the best of my knowledge? If New World backfires, then you'll be ready for the handoff, and pick up a few 100,000 new players eager for a new MMO to grind through. Why miss out on that opportunity? Why directly compete with Amazon, who has unlimited marketing resources at their disposal? But I digress. The controls here in Bless Online definitely feel a bit unorthodox in some areas. For example, in order to jump, you have to press the control key, which is really odd because in the vast majority of games, most games will dedicate the spacebar to fulfilling that function, whereas control or sometimes the shift are usually your dodge or roll options. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't believe you can rebind this currently, although I have no idea whether they'll enable rebinding in the full game at launch. Overall, I wasn't really that blown away by Bless Online. I think it'll be decent at launch, but nothing about it really makes me go, oh, I've got to pre-order this now. For comparison's sake, I've been eyeballing New World for the better part of a year now, so it's not like I lack the appetite for a decently light MMORPG. This one definitely has potential, but there's way too many warning signs for me to trust it in the developer wholeheartedly. On that note though, that's where I think I'm going to wrap up the video for today. As usual, if you enjoyed this video or found it informative, please do be sure to give this video a like, share it around, and definitely let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I'm always up for some vigorous and healthy debate in my comment section. We don't all have to agree, but as long as we keep things fairly civil, I'm more than happy. If you want to support the work I do in the channel, subscribing and clicking the bell to opt into getting all notifications would really help. Either way, thanks for joining me, as always. This is WarriorDan signing out. Stay awesome, everybody. Stay safe and peace out.